If we can make it to that big rock over there with that tree, we'll have cover from 2 directions. Come on, son," he shouted to the dog above the roar of the whitewater as he triggered off 2 more rounds across the creek and jumped up. On the 3rd step, his leather-soled boot slid off the top of a melon-sized rock at the water's edge. At the same time, 3 more shots were fired in his direction from across the creek. A fine spray of red blossomed briefly as he grunted, dropped his pistol, and splashed headlong into the raging torrent. More shots were fired at the large animal as he sprinted behind a deadfall up on the bank. The swollen rapids of Honey Creek tumbled the man's body downstream at between 8 and 12 miles an hour. The body hung briefly on the roots of a tree wedged between 2 boulders, and then was ripped loose as much of his shirt tore away. He was then forced through a sieve between 2 rocks into a hole, where he was rolled down to the bottom of the creek, back up again to the surface, and back down to the bottom again in a deadly cycle. Suddenly his eyes snapped open underwater, and he looked up at the light above. He instinctively curled into a ball, and as he hit the gravel bottom again, pushed with all his might and shot to the surface. Grabbing a quick gulp of air above the churning water, he ducked back down and lunged to the right, cleared the hole, and was back into the main stream again. On the bank, the wolf dog running along a game trail through the thick woods that paralleled the creek easily kept pace with the surging water. His eyes never left the tumbling, bobbing, rolling figure that was his master. The man tried to grab a boulder off to the side of the main channel, but it was too slick and he was washed on downstream. As he bobbed to the surface once again, he looked down the creek and his heart froze. Honey Creek disappeared. It cascaded over the 77 feet of Turner Falls. "Oh, Jesus, my only chance is to ride the flow to the bottom and take my chances on that 30-foot deep pool. Hope to hell I don't hit that big rock in the middle. Ain't like I got a choice." He flattened out his body, his feet pointing in the direction of the falls, hands at his side, before he hit the slick coating. Over thousands of years, Honey Creek had deposited layer after layer of the fine-grained, multicolored travertine. The coating had thickened to the point that the falls did not drop straight down the block fault, but rather had smoothed to a near 45-degree gradient. It was like hitting black ice. He shot out into the middle of the pool at the base at almost 35 miles an hour, just narrowly missing the large boulder in front of the falls. The impact of the water took his breath away as he plunged almost 2/3 of the way to the bottom. Once the water slowed his momentum, he started to kick his legs to bring himself back to the top. His lungs were near bursting, and blackness was closing in as his face broke the surface. He took in several great draughts of air, shook his head, causing him to see stars, painfully struggled his way back to the falls, grabbed another breath of air, and dove under the cascading water. He surfaced on the other side and pulled himself onto a 2-foot ledge that extended in front of a prehistoric cave that penetrated deep back into the mountain. Somehow he managed to drag himself up 8 feet to the level floor of the cave, where he curled into a fetal position on the damp rock. His hand went to the side of his head as he felt of the deep gouge that was still oozing blood. The semi-darkness of the cave began to swirl around him with multicolored lights, and then mercifully went totally black.